Gamescom is coming up, and I actually think this is a pretty important event for Path of Exile 2. Because this is not just Grinding Gear Games showing up and having a little booth there. They've specifically told us to watch Opening Night Live, which is the second most viewed gaming event of the year, just behind the Game Awards. That's the part that really gets me. Grinding Gear Games could have just said, hey, we're going to Gamescom, come check out the game and play our special little version of it here. Instead, they've basically said, watch the show. You don't want to miss it. So we're getting something big. And you got to remember, Gamescom is in a really interesting spot on the PoE 2 timeline. We're getting very close to the end of early access. ExileCon is coming later this year in early November, which is obviously where I expect the extremely massive 1.0 information to come out. Literally everything involved with that release. So I don't think GGG is going to completely blow their biggest announcement load at Gamescom. I just went there. But I also do not think they're going to show up at Opening Night Live with some tiny nothing burger. This is a huge general gaming audience. A lot of these people aren't following every single PoE 2 interview and every single Jonathan Rogers comment like I am, and you most likely are. So whatever GGG shows needs to work for that particular audience. I went through the things I think are realistically on the table, and I've got 5 predictions. And I'm ranking these based on what I think GGG is actually most likely to show, not necessarily what I want the most. Number 5. The Shadow, Daggers, and Traps. I'm putting this at number 5 because I think it's possible, but I'm not super confident on it. Obviously, we have some pretty large holes in the weapon and class lineup, and Shadow is one of the missing classes. Daggers and Traps are some of the missing weapons, and we've really seen nothing about them except for the fact that they are dropping in game. They're not really usable. We've had a couple of teasers of the Shadow as a class and Daggers as a weapon in recent Grinding Gear Games showcases, and maybe they want to launch 2 classes with 1.0. We basically know that Duelist and Swords are coming, so instead of giving us the obvious showcase of that class and that particular weapon archetype, they could show something completely out of left field. The Shadow, which is the rogue in the world of Path of Exile. This is something that people could latch onto pretty easily. It's a broad fantasy, daggers and traps, and it's something that I reckon that other ARPGs actually do quite well. The Diablo 4 rogue and the rogue class in Last Epoch, the name is escaping me as I'm writing this up, they're pretty darn cool. So could Grinding Gear Games do what they did with the Druid back at Gamescom 2023 and give their version of the rogue and completely curb stomp the other ARPGs like they did with the Druid back at its initial reveal at Gamescom 2023. Showcase of the Master Trap Spin could really get people talking. However, I feel like if we're really discussing about the real big thing GGG is going to put up on Opening Night Live, there are other things that make more sense or are just more likely. So I'm putting the Shadow and its associated weapons at number 5. It's very possible. It wouldn't surprise me at this point, but I would never bet on it. I only gamble in Path of Exile and a couple of other games. Number 4, big 0.5.5 information. This one, it feels safe, even if it's boring. We know we're getting patch 0.55. It has been promised to us by Jonathan Rogers. The question is really, how much are they going to tell us about it, and is Gamescom the proper venue to do that? If they wanted to get some people into the game before 1.0, I guess this would be the place to reveal what exactly is in 0.55. When is it coming? Is there going to be a minor new mechanic that draws people in, like a new Atlas Master? Will there be new Ascendancy classes? Will there be changes that are substantial to existing balance, including some sweeping Ascendancy buffs? Will there be new skills? What's the event going to be? Is this going to actually keep us occupied during the final stretch of early access from its release in September to December, because they did say this would be a 1-month event leak. Of course, they're not going to dump all the patch notes on us at Gamescom for 055, but I could see if they are feeling particularly boring, and GGG doesn't really seem to be the most boring company, I could see them giving us a teaser of 055 at this event. And we have to remember that people will actually be playing something at Gamescom. They have a special demo. So what's being made and shown at Gamescom isn't just a trailer. There's something palpable, raw, playable that they want people experiencing. That makes me wonder if it is patch 055, maybe it's larger than we're expecting. It could be nothing, it could just be a curated demo of existing content, but I think it's worth paying attention to. Remember, we don't want to get ourselves too hyped up about patch 055. I just released a video talking about how we shouldn't do that, but this is a hype video, I suppose. Number 3, the release date of 1.0. Yes, we have ExileCon coming later this year, and that does make sense to be the place to tell the world about 1.0's release, but Gamescom is such a bigger event than ExileCon. In fact, if you just go back to 2024, Gamescom opening night live is when they announced the release date of Path of Exile to early access, which they later had to push back to early December. I remember this moment extremely vividly because it was about an hour before my second daughter, Chloe, was born. I had it up on my phone. I was watching it. We got that cinematic trailer of Lumerius, who still is not in the game, with a couple of snapshots at bosses, some that we've seen, some that we hadn't seen. And we got the date reveal, and it was hype. If they want to showcase that PoE 2 is going into 1.0 at the end of the year to the largest audience possible, this is the place that they're going to do it, not at ExileCon. ExileCon can be for everything else. The new classes, full reveals of the acts, the new league that's coming, all the Path of Exile 1 stuff. Gamescom could be telling the world that PoE 2 is finally in a place playable enough to be experienced by the free-to-play mass audience. So we could get that release date trailer with a new cinematic, with a couple snippets of brand new boss fights that we have never seen, and that could be it. A 1-minute trailer at opening night live. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe this is the most likely. Maybe I should have put it at the top of my list instead of these next two. Number 2, Act 5. All right, this is probably the one that I'm most interested in seeing gameplay of. And I reckon the general audience is probably the same way. Because if you're trying to sell Path of Exile 2 to a general gaming audience, showing them something they have literally never seen before is pretty darn effective, especially when PoE 2 is as compelling graphically and with its animations and sound design as it is. And Act 5, something that we haven't seen for years, and it might be completely unrecognizable today, is the obvious candidate. We know it's happening in 1.0. It's new, and this means that GGG has a ton of material they can pull from. Probably over a dozen boss fights, lots of new monsters, story beats, new areas, cool new items, NPCs, whatever. They can showcase all of this. And the most important thing, you can show Act 5 and you won't have to explain a bunch of Path of Exile specific systems like classes or ascendancies, or hey, here's patch 055, which is a balance patch with a 1-month event league that you can play in until early access ends. Instead, you can show someone a cool boss fight and say, this is Path of Exile 2. That's effective. That's exactly the kind of thing, the kind of marketing that would work at opening night live. And then you've got the Gamescom demo. And this is where I really start wondering what they're letting people play. If they're showing Act 5 on stage and then letting people play a section of it at Gamescom, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't think people are going to be able to play the Shadow with daggers and traps. I don't think they're going to be playing a version of patch 055 or just a general demo of the game after a release date announcement. This Act 5 with the pre-made character, maybe the first 3 or 4 areas, this gives something genuinely new to experience to both brand new players, the general audience, but also those Path of Exile fanatics who are attending Gamescom in the flesh. And it gives Grinding Your Games a chance to start showing people what Path of Exile 2 looks like beyond what we've already been playing in early access. I could see this being the big reveal. And I think it might be the best reveal, in my personal opinion. But there's one thing that I think is even more likely. Say it with me, my number one prediction: Swords and the Duelist. Oh, heavens above, if it's not Swords. We've been waiting forever, and I think this is the most obvious fantasy piece that GGG could put in front of a general gaming audience and show that they are the best in the business. It's Swords. They're cool. Everybody understands what a sword is. You don't have to explain anything. You put a character on the screen with a massive sword and you start deleting monsters in ways that you never thought possible. Give me some wicked Lost Ark style gameplay in Path of Exile 2 with swords. You're done. You got people bought in. You say that this comes at the end of the year with the launch of 1.0, and you will have people in droves leaping into Path of Exile 2 and trying out the demo at Gamescom. And with Swords, the Duelist is obviously tied into the conversation. We've talked about this class for so darn long. I've gone down so many rabbit holes that at this point it almost feels like it's a running joke, a meme that'll never go away in the world of Rayclass, and that they'll be pulling a cruel joke on us and just not releasing them until the very end, even after the Templar. But eventually, Grinding Your Games does have to show us this stuff, show us that they can make melee and swords awesome. And I think Gamescom 2026 is an excellent opportunity, because if they're trying to attract people who aren't already deeply invested in Path of Exile 2, a generic sword-focused character is instantly understandable. I would even argue that Human Fighter is a meme in D&D for a reason. It's what most people latch onto in fantasy. This gives them a very obvious visual hook, and it also gives existing PoE players something they've been asking for forever. So you get both audiences, kind of like with Act 5. New players see, oh, all right, a cool sword character, and PoE players see, holy fuck, the Duelist. And Grinding Your Games doesn't even have to reveal the whole class. They could show off 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 skills. They could show just the weapon, maybe a unique. They could give us a little gameplay segment and a cinematic of the Duelist like we've received for multiple other classes. I mean, they could literally just show the character in its iconic red outfit and say, Duelist. And that probably wouldn't be effective to the people at Gamescom, but us Path of Exile players would be extremely hyped. I also think swords just make more sense for Gamescom than something like Shadow. Not because the Shadow isn't compelling or cool, but because swords are immediately readable and probably a lot less complicated than traps and maybe even daggers will be. This is opening night live. You have people who have never played Path of Exile 2 watching. A sword is a sword. I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point, but I just really think we're gonna see Duelist and Swords on August 25th. All right, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to do, but stay with me. What I'm actually wondering at the end of writing this is whether or not GGG combines some of these together, because they don't necessarily have to pick one to generate maximum hype. You could have a trailer that shows swords off, then you could have a little bit of it in Act 5, say a Duelist in Act 5. Then you could say, here's the 055 release date, and then they end it with more at ExileCon 2026, November 7th and 8th. That would make a ton of sense to me marketing-wise. Give people enough at Gamescom to get excited. Give them a demo of swords, maybe in Act 1. Don't give away the entire 1.0 reveal and release date, and save the giant announcement for ExileCon. That's probably the balance I'd expect. So again, my predictions in order: the Shadow with daggers and traps, or big 055 info, or a release date, or Act 5, or Swords and the Duelist. And of course, I could give my real prediction. Grinding Your Games shows something completely different, and makes me look like a total fool. Do I leave toodle in there? Yeah, I will. My fellow exiles, thank you so much for watching once more. I had a lot of creativity while my family was gone these past couple days. I was able to pump out multiple scripts. I really hope you enjoyed the Path of Exile 2 content. If you would like to see more of it, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your fellow exiles. And make sure leave a comment with your Gamescom prediction. Will you be watching with me? Have a wonderful evening. Good night. Farewell, exiles.